and they're always a treat. They're always a good time, whether in person or online. So we're really chuffed to be able to open this up, not only to our founder community today, but actually to everybody. So we had our first Next Founder Community Day yesterday of this quarter. So I can actually see a couple of faces, I think, that joined us yesterday as well. So yeah, this is really cool to be able to kind of have everybody in here today. We've got a couple of other excellent events coming up. They are in person that I just wanted to tell you about quickly. So we're hosting an event, unfortunately, for sunny in Auckland. This will be in Cremorne, so apologies about that, but it will be a debate that's on the start of the ecosystem. So we've got some fantastic speakers. We've got a local councillor for Melbourne. Des has done a fantastic job of pulling this together with Megan from the Aussie Founders Club. So it'll be quite the spicy topic, quite the fun debate. And yeah, just exploring, is the Victorian ecosystem dead? So there's be lots of great, I can only imagine how that one's going to go. So if you're around, I believe it's what's the date for that one again, Des? It's gone out of my head. Is it the 27th? There we go. Terribly organised, but we'll get the date and we'll pop the link in there for you guys too. So yeah, please feel free to come down. I think that's probably enough of me waffling, but yeah, first of many webinars to come. So yeah, hand it back to the professionals here and can't wait to see these decks. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Rochelle. And I'll pop that event into the chat shortly, but that will be on the 13th of November. There's also a few other events happening for the rest of the year. A few that will go live soon, but also running a Christmas party, or an end of year party, I should say. And so getting into that time of the year, something I think we're all very excited about, but really thrilled to be able to run that with Aussie Founders Club and also with Luna, the startup accounting law firm who just got acquired, actually. So I'm sure they've got lots to celebrate about. But enough about talking about celebrating. I'm really thrilled to be able to introduce our expert VC here for today. So really thrilled that we've got Hugh from Galileo Ventures, who's actually done quite a few of these. Now, Hugh is the co-founder. I also believe he's the general partner of Galileo, but he's an experienced founder operator. One of two, amazing. Done a number of things, including advising Tixel, board observer for Zendia, also Skid Social, so running that at the same time while running Galileo. But another claim to fame is that you have been a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient. And so I'd love to hand over to
bad sign that one.
Amazing. I'll take it as a flex anyway, but would love to throw it over to Hugh, who will share a bit more about himself and about Galileo.
Sweet. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you to the CDH team for inviting me along. Always good to see the team. Galileo is a early stage venture fund. We're a pre-seed and seed fund. We're actually a pre-seed and seed fund. Most of the checks, I think the last deal we did, the founder sort of, I guess, conditional on everyone transferring or us transferring the money. The founder had to quit his job. So we do indeed actually invest at the very start of companies. And you know, we lead rounds. Sometimes it's just us. Sometimes it's with co-investors. We often help to shape up rounds. In other words, introduce co-investors when it's a bit of a bigger round. But we generally invest between $250,000 and $1 million in a round. Typically, the rounds are somewhere between 250,000 and you know, sort of 1.5. We've sort of done a few larger rounds. VC is a game of exceptions, but I like to invest really early. We've just finished deploying out of Fund 1. You may recognize Tixel is one of the bigger consumer companies in Fund 1, but we've also got Relevance AI, Lumi, a game studio. We've got Andromeda, the consumer / companion robotics company in Melbourne here, and a whole series of others. And so Fund 2 is shaping up, and probably we'll start investing out of that in probably the next 3 or 4 weeks, probably, is my guess. You know, we're sort of waiting for the first deal to really shape it up to close Fund 2. So it's a pretty exciting time. To get things rolling, do you want me to just start rolling, Des?
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I didn't actually know all that context with investing in Andromeda. Really cool stuff there. Now, if anyone did want to
update our portfolio page.
Amazing. Lots to update. Lots of exciting things ahead. Now, in the chat, I have just set up, I've just added Hugh's LinkedIn to learn a bit more about Galileo. And also, last time we ran this with your co-founder, James, and was curious how do founders, you know, how do they get involved? How do they submit a deck? And his advice was really just to submit your deck to the application form that's on the website. So if anyone on the call is a founder. Really thrilled for you to be able to have that opportunity to submit your deck. But in the meantime, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have 3 founders who have taken the brave decision to have their decks, we won't say broken down because it's a very friendly environment. It's a really good opportunity for Hugh to provide some really positive and constructive feedback. And so then these founders can hopefully take the feedback on board. And the next time they're submitting a deck, maybe it's through Galileo's application form, then that will give the opportunity for us all to be better operators. But we do have our first deck just here. Now, while we're introducing the first deck, can I just check? Yep, the screen share is working well.
Okay.
So, first up, we have Dr. Christine. Now, Christine, are you on the call just here? You've all been put on mute for obvious reasons, but just put an emoji or a thumbs up if you are here on the call, because we are very excited to be able to go through your deck. Perfect. Amazing. Now, Hugh is going to go through the deck. You haven't seen these decks before, Hugh. Can confirm because I sent them to him about 5 minutes ago. So he's getting a real fresh set of eyes. And so what we'd love for you to do, Hugh, is just to really give some live commentary of you looking through this. Basically, if someone submitted this to you, what would you be thinking? But also, we'll just keep it very positive and constructive as well. And then after that, once Hugh's done, I'll give you the opportunity to go off mute, Dr. Christine, and then you can just give any reflections, have any additional questions, and then we'll go into our second founder. How does that sound?
Sounds good. So I guess context for me in the way that I think about these things. So the aim here, from my view, is to try and kind of brain dump what I think and go through as I'm going through this. We obviously go through, I think we look at about 150 on average companies each month. So we look at about 150 each month. So it's usually a pretty quick process. But we also give feedback to our own founders who are going to obviously go and raise either a seed round or maybe an A or a B. About their decks and kind of look at how they tell the narrative and things like that. So we sort of do a similar thing of we record looms for our founders and give them the feedback that way. So I'm going to roll through. And to be clear, and certainly it's as Des said, it's very challenging, I think, to volunteer a thing to be broken down like this in public. So thank you to all of the founders for doing that. And I do mean everything constructively. And a lot of the time I find that the feedback that even our founders see, I think that everyone sees, is often that piece of where you're communicating a different thing to what you'd intended. So it's not actually that something is bad. It's just the piece of, the message that comes across is probably different to what was originally intended. So without a doubt, without a further delay, VizCat. So opening slide, very important. It's the thumbnail on our little thing. I like it, simple. It's clearly some sort of child education thing. Equally, I sort of initially saw the doctor and then the optom, everything else, and was like, is this going to be about pets? Given there's a cat there, right? Until I read the bottom part. But obviously, it's about child. My only thing here would be to say, this is kind of the vision piece, which I like a vision piece, this is what you're seeking to go and do, but it doesn't. Visual cognition assessment tool doesn't necessarily tell me quite what you do. I mean, I've got some idea because I may have a bit of a background in healthcare, but cognition assessment doesn't necessarily quite tell me what you do in the same degree of the sort of short, snappy, this is exactly what we're doing in the version 1, while this is the bigger, future vision element. Okay, now we're getting to what we do. See, so I put this bit. This bit, probably stick it on the first slide. Vision process early, game-based tool. So I look at this and I go, yeah, okay, I've seen a series of these, it's sort of become a bit of a trend, less so very recently now that everything is AI, but, sort of, I guess in the 2020s, late 2010s, game-based assessment-y kind of stuff became very trendy. So cool. I know Tali, for example. So that's sort of what I'm going through here. I know Tali, for example, was a listed company. I've got a friend that used to be the CEO of it. I don't know how well it's gone, but I'm like, okay, cool. And there's people have done this space before, which is a good thing, to be clear. The problem, maybe. I think this doesn't communicate it quite as usefully about what we do. So at this point, I'm sort of going, this looks and feels more like it's meant to be a deck that you present than one that I would just like read cold, right? So, and that probably does the same thing with the name up here, probably gave the same signal. So we usually tell our founders to split one version to sort of be the read deck, if that makes sense, that you're emailing to people, as compared to one you might present on a call or a thing. So this is probably the kind of thing of, I'm sure there's probably a little bit more context slash explaining or whatever that would happen when I'm presenting it. But on its own, it sort of doesn't really tell me, okay, cool, like kids have learning difficulties. And, sometimes it takes time for people to work, for teachers slash parents, et cetera, to work out that they've got learning difficulties. That's not really news to me. So like, what's that really translating to? Cool. Okay. So we don't have a simple tool. Again, I sort of vaguely knew this, and again, not everyone necessarily, I say I vaguely knew this, but, not everyone will necessarily know that. But as a VC, I go, yeah, okay, like it happens. I think there's, yeah, okay. I go, okay. Like, I think the problem is kind of clear. I wouldn't have put another slide about the problem necessarily. Like this to me this says this piece, if that makes sense. Or, like I'd sort of, again, it's sort of the thing of when you present it obviously, stacks it out like it's a single slide. But, short, it's late. These kind of slides I find, again, good when you're presenting, but bad when you're reading through. As you see, like you've got to sort of scroll through it. And it's like, oh, we need a better way. Yeah, obviously, like you're going to get to the solution after the problem. Okay, so this to me gives me the same amount of information as the first slide. So again, I'm sure when you're presenting it, you might give more stuff, but it gives more the same sort of stuff. This, I think, is actually a better graphic than this one, because it gives me a better idea immediately of like what it is that the sort of game aesthetic and vibe is really doing. So I put this graphic right up at the start rather than the sort of like splash screen. I think it's quite a simple way to sort of, I can immediately go, okay, like this is the kind of interaction that they're going for. Cool. Test children early. We said that a few times. Cool. This feels like a website page, deck page. Not a bad thing. I actually don't mind it. And this again would be potentially good for the first slide. People like to see people. And again, same sort of thing of it tries to show the simplicity of it. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, again, presenting it makes sense to have it in there, but it doesn't really add a lot to me necessarily. I sort of make the assumption that it's a touchscreen device. Plus, also, even if it was iPad only, I would go, well, like if it's $500 versus nothing, like you can find an iPad somewhere. And everyone knows that schools have iPads everywhere these days, intentionally or not, or many schools. I don't want to be too thing. Okay, so this then feels very similar to the previous thing. And my mind is sort of going, how does this compare to the previous one? Just kind of tricky to see. So I'd think about maybe changing the visual design of this a little bit so it communicates it a bit differently. But again, it feels like you're kind of doing saying the same thing of like, hey, this one is, hey, we do this early and it saves money. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then looking at this, I go, okay, well, so is this going to be, you're saying saves 30K. Earlier, you sort of imply saves $500 in time and effort and everything else. Like, what really is the saving then? So I think like, is this maybe the piece of, there's a slide about parent problem of the cost of diagnostics, and then there's a school problem with the cost of service and things like that. Value prop, this is useful. Like I'd maybe not even say value prop and just say who buys this. Like I think the value prop for children is cool. Yeah, I mean, children just do the stuff that you give them would be my view when it comes to sort of stuff. I would more wonder the piece of what's the business model. Okay, cool. The buyers are education sector and clinics. The why, again, you've sort of covered that already a few times. And so I'd more sort of use this as maybe an opportunity to talk a little bit about business model and cost. Oh, look at that business model next. It's always a good sign when I say that, and then the next slide answers the question. Cool. So $25 per test. Sure, that kind of makes sense. Then you always get price wrong at the start, so it kind of makes sense. This one I sort of wonder a little bit, like, how much of this is going to be the sort of thing of where, schools will, or clinics, I guess, will license per class in that context, per child, versus, teachers or educators, I guess, selectively going, hey, I want to, sort of there's these 5 children that I see, I guess, more at risk as compared to the bulk. So that one I sort of go, does that really line up with the way that that a sort of school or education system buys. Schools don't often like buying sort of school-wide, class-wide licenses for most things. I know that from sort of other ed tech stuff. Maybe that's wrong in this particular case, but that one makes me go, not sure. But the pricing piece, I go, yeah, okay, it's accessible, whatever. I like that piece. It doesn't require specialist training. Revenue streams, yeah, sure. Bulk licensing, you've kind of already said that piece over here. Like the assumption here is that government may buy for schools on bulk. At least that's my assumption. Data insights, I think that's an interesting one. I think that's a kind of, I'm not sure I could ever see that being a big revenue stream. Like this is clearly the primary model piece, but I couldn't. The data, it's always tricky to sell access to data on children. It's kind of it becomes ethically complex. Research data, make it interesting, learn stuff, sure, but different. Market slide, there's a lot of theories on whether market slides are good, market slides are bad. I don't know, I like to sort of say that you want to sort of squint at stuff and sort of go, does this get really big? I think with my comment in the previous slide, I sort of immediately am a bit like, I'm a bit suspicious, I guess, a little bit about the numbers here. And I'm suspicious about them in the context of, I'm not sure that I buy on the face of it that the the school would license on an annual basis. And so like I can make a market assumption that we're buying it for every child or 15% of children or whatever it is. But I sort of go, I can sort of see it being taken up much more piecemeal. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, what I would probably do here is put some more like good opportunities, stick some links in there for like if there's presumably reports and stuff that underlie this data. Always handy to shove them in. Again, it doesn't look as good when you're presenting because no one's going to type a full URL from their phone or something. But again, for a read deck, it's fine to shove some links in a small text at the bottom. Competitive analysis. App One. So this is the first reference I've seen, I think, to App One, and I go, okay, like what's the deal with that? But we'll put that aside for a second. The circle thing for a SWOT, I don't know if it really works. Like SWOT is traditionally in the crossy thing, 2x2. I don't know. I don't think this. I wouldn't say this necessarily tells me a lot. I think I care more in this context about where exactly, like, what a customer sees as the competition. Why does a customer, what does a customer see as the alternatives, as in the customer, so the early learning customer, not the sort of late customer. So like this part, I sort of go, I haven't seen any sort of like competitor slides in that context beyond obviously the later stage things, and that always makes me a little bit worried. Now see how we're already at page 14, so it's a long read deck. Would be what I'd say. Go to market. Unless we've got appendixes here. But normally we will say to our founders sort of 10 to 12 slides is kind of a read deck, 8 to 12 slides even, 8 to 10 slides. Again, you might present more for in a meeting. Go to market, sure, pilots, then awareness, and you're sure, like, nah. This kind of again, like I try and shy away from the things of telling people things that are kind of like the near kind of like default assumption that you're going to start small and then you're going to grow awareness and you're going to sell more. Like, okay, I guess I care more here about how exactly you're going to establish partnerships. Like, do you have pre-established partnerships? What's the channel? Like, are you thinking of this as a sort of as a channel piece? A lot of schools, for example, in public, I know buy through a lot of channel partners. I hate channel partners as an early distribution channel, but maybe you've got some degree of insight about that I don't have. Okay, cool. This is a interesting, I don't know if I'd call it product testing like this. It sort of feels a bit, I can tell you've got a research background or some research experience. It's a very researchery slide. This sort of, to me, like what I want to know out of this is like, what's the one big message? Like, is the one big message quick completion? Is it this? Or is it this piece? So I think like think about what that one big message is, and be cautious of throwing too much information in the slide. Again, this is a wonderful, wonderful bit of statistical analysis. I think for a non-statistician, and I do have some stats training. So if I read this in detail, and if I even went and looked at the journal, I would hopefully be able to have some degree of understanding. I know what a p-value is. But for non-statisticians, it's really simple. And I think this doesn't really like, I would much more simply, like, this is kind of your key message, right? But also you haven't really talked about what an NDPA is, right? there's a little one here, but the one is not even on the slide, or it's hidden. So that part, I go, okay, this is the key message. So you want to make that really obvious, whereas it's kind of hidden in the context of all of everything else. VCs are not statisticians; they're useless. Okay, where are we? Capital raised. So I assume this is where we are. Yeah, okay, this is where we are. Cool. I find these things like a little bit, like, again, the visual side, I think I'd do this visually a little bit differently. But I don't mind. I like sort of the piece of, hey, we're showing, the stuff we've done to date. This to me goes, oh, it's been a long time, 2018, long time, but admittedly, like, TTO commercialization stuff can take a long time. But, again, VC mindset, you go, oh, it's been a long time to get to something in market. That makes me a little bit worried. But, cool. Okay. So we've spent 636 to get to the point of, sold. We've done tram. I know tram. We've done, we've got some sort of, patent or, IP approach. Cool. Don't know what this means. Trial partners. So this is where I'd stick this earlier of like what we've done. So, who we think is going to be the early bits and pieces, more letters that mean not very much to me. Trial partners, I look at this and I go, okay, so like tram is obviously more an education thing, and health is, like more of a, so what I'm looking for, industry group, I guess, education group. Those aren't customers. So I sort of go, and like the same thing of how much of this is a trial partner as a research partnership. I assume the Melbourne, Hong Kong Polytechnic is research partnership compared to customer or distributor partnership. Behavioral optometrist, maybe distributor, I don't know. So I sort of split these into groups a little bit of like who, because I sort of want to know who's going to use this at the start, and who have you spoken to who's agreed to use it at the start versus, research partnerships or, just other general things. Regulatory compliance. This I think you could probably feels like it should just be a real sort of sentence or so. Again, I feel implicitly inside my guts, this piece is cool. You're not diagnostic. You don't need to do that. So if I didn't know anything about TGA approvals, FDA approval, I sort of look at it and I go, probably unlikely. You probably be able to get around the same sort of non-diagnostic option. But again, that's a little bit based on my knowledge. I'd probably ask you about this question on how you'd think about it. But I think that, I wouldn't necessarily think it could be more of a bullet point than necessarily full slide. Risks and mitigations. I don't know, like this one I sort of go, what's it really going to tell me? I guess you're thinking about risks, but all founders think about risks. Otherwise, companies are dead. Product roadmap is more interesting. Okay, so I want to know what the difference between a V1 and a V2 is, and an aptitude. There's a lot of sort of like internal language in the slides here. So I'd wonder if there's like a bit better way to sort of talk about this is what we have now, this is what next. Yep, I'm almost there. Okay, getting through this, sorry. Board team, love a board thing. Advisors, it's good to split out advisors. I like that you split them out on the side here like this, makes it a little bit easier. The fact that the board team is kind of like there's the CFO, but also the board chair, I sort of go, ooh, it's a bit like something everywhere. Strange to have CFO as a big, like there's two CFOs here. It's a bit of a strange, I sort of have to ask about that. I'm going to move a bit more quickly because I'm a bit behind here. Sorry, that's why I'm moving quickly. Comparable exits. I immediately look at this and I go, look, it doesn't have anything about Tali, which is the only one that I know locally because it's an Australian company and it was listed. So what's that? Do you know about that? What is the difference? Pearson is okay. It's not really an exit. That's just like a shitload of different things. Yeah, they buy stuff. But I don't know if that necessarily fits into the Pearson portfolio. Again, implicitly from my head, it's education related, but do they do sort of this quasi-diagnostic? I don't know. Cool. You got a bit of valuation here, and you're trying to sort of do the piece of this to me goes, okay, 5-10x revenue multiples. Okay, where do you think the revenue is going to go to have me see the 1000x return? Right. So if you reckon it's a 5 mil pre-money, how is this going to be, 500 mil plus billion kind of size business? Is that going to make sense within 5-10x revenue multiples? I'll find out. I have to do some napkin math. 1.3 at 5. I go, oh, okay, like you're diluting pretty strong, but that makes sense. what I don't know here is this doesn't quite. I mean, valuation is it's good for founders to have an idea of valuation, but it's always set by the lead. So it's nice to have an idea, and nice to have information that you could potentially tell me about this. But I don't really care. Like I like to have an idea of, you think you're going to do 1.3 for 5, cool. I don't really care what your assumptions are, because I have to come to my own assumptions to then work it out. What I get for it, I like that. People is usually the most expensive, so I kind of want to know maybe a little bit more about how you're thinking about people. If you identified them, everything else. And I like the outcome here. The only thing that I'd say is missing here is like, what do we get for our 1.3? Where do we quite get? Like, is this the outcome we're expecting to get? Like again, in like a traditional SaaS model, you'd be like, okay, we're going to raise 1.3 to get to the first 100K in sales, or $1 million in sales, whatever it is. The vision piece, I think there's potentially there's 2 arguments: stick vision early, stick vision late. I think I like this. It's a nice feel good thing. It doesn't really tell me that you want to give me buckets and buckets of money. And a contact site. That's it. Useful links, like some useful links. And this is the kind of thing that, yes, useful appendixes, like some appendixes. This one, risk mitigation appendix. Yeah. This one looks to me like the one that we've seen before. And this one I sort of go, okay, capital raise, and you've got a whole lot of leadership in kind stuff. And I go, was that really capital raise? And separate question. And this one, yeah, okay. I wonder a little bit here of like, okay, so 3 years financial projection, you think you'll be 500. If you reckon at 500K and it's a 5 to 10x multiple, I go, oh, isn't that going to say that in 27, 28, you're going to be only just the valuation you're at now? Would be the question I'd ask. So yeah, that's the first one. Do you want to? Yes, there we go.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Hugh. And thank you, Christine, for providing your deck and putting yourself in a situation where you can get that feedback, and also hopefully you can take that on board as well. There's a good friend of mine who always reminds everyone that feedback is a gift. And so I really hope that that insight is taken on board in a really constructive and productive way. Coming from someone who's definitely not a VC and definitely does not have the lens that Hugh has, so much commentary that I wouldn't have really thought of or related to. I'm looking at these decks, looking at the graphic design and looking at the marketing to it. So I hope that is well received, and I hope you can go away with some of those comments and be able to level up for next time. Now, Christine, I've put you briefly I've allowed you to hop yourself off mute. If there's anything you wanted to add or any questions you want to ask Hugh, well, we've just shared all that.
You're welcome to ask me stuff offline as well, just for the record, if you don't want to ask now. So.
Perfect.
Am I unmuted? Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yep, perfect. Yep. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. That was really, really helpful. You are correct. That slide deck was based on me presenting. So there's a lot that's not there that probably should have been there. But you're right on the button with a lot of your assumptions, which was really great to see. Really helpful. Totally agree, too long. I don't have any specific questions. I just wanted to thank you. I'm grateful for your insights. And if you're happy for me to reach out to you another time, that would be greatly appreciated.
Very happy. Always happy to respond to emails. Our job is to respond to emails. So
thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it. I won't waste anyone else's more time with my long slides, so I'll leave you to it.
Oh, no. Thanks so much, Christine. And if there's one call to action I can just leave everyone on this call to do, I've shared this website into the chat. So it's just that link there, viscat.com.au. If we could all give Christine a huge level of support, jump on that website, check it out, give it some love. I couldn't quite find any socials. If there are socials, give the socials some love as well. Reach out to Christine if there's some collaboration opportunities. Would love some positive outcomes to come from that. But thank you so much, Christine, for doing that and for also taking their comments on board so well. Now, our next founder, I'm delighted to introduce. Our next founder is Varsha, who I've seen on the call. And so Varsha attends a lot of things. For some people on the call, you may have met Varsha in Melbourne at a number of different startup events. I think I've seen you join, I can't remember the programs, Antler or Blackbird, I can't remember which one, but you're very out and about, so very decorated, dedicated founder, and we're thrilled to be able to go through your deck, Varsha. And then similar to what we just did, after this call, I'll allow you to go off mute. And if there's anything you wanted to add, we'll go from there. But I can see this one is also 23 slides. So we'll go through this.
I'll try and work my way through it.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
I
easy.
should look at the length first. It's my lesson.
Oh, no, perfect. Appreciate that, Hugh. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, cool. So this one immediately says to me what you do: platform design, visualize, build packaging. Cool. What I wonder is I immediately look at this and I go, oh, is this going to be one of those like AI things of where I can draw the box and then it does all of the other things? That's what I'm thinking so far. But nice, easy, simple. Hopefully that's the message it's meant to give me. Why packaging? Okay, boxes are important. Yeah, okay. I sort of go, is this really the number two thing I would do? Why packaging? People know that people buy stuff in boxes. So I don't know if that's necessarily a big thing. Again, is that the most important message? Cute, fun, memes. I don't know. Like I think interesting piece. But again, I sort of wonder, is it really the most important? Packaging is complex. Okay, yes, I know a little bit enough about this to be like, yep, it is stupid. Good slide in terms of talking about the problems that people, I guess, face and the different collaboration problems. It's a good slide. Again, I wonder, is this really the most important piece and the problem piece? This is the same as the first slide, right? The top half of this is all the same as the first slide, realistically. So, like there's some explaining text here that AI generated, love an AI generated thing. Every VC loves a bit of AI. But the top part, I go, it hasn't added a lot more than the first slide did. So I don't know if it necessarily uses the space. Maybe it's just a reshaped size. And this is a big paragraph of text. So, like bullet points and stuff like that is always easier to read. And so I try and either split out text into some, shorter sentences and paragraph, or like bullet point it. But cool, AI generated, like can do render. Like again, you've done the bold thing, but like they're kind of the bullet points I want. It's like AI generated dies, gives you renders, you can see what it looks like. Concept production. I like the concept of production messaging. Good messaging. What we're building. Okay, cool. Is this going to be a what we're building time sequence? Is this what we have? Is this version 1? So that's what I would say here. Like, it's almost like, is this what we're building over what timeline? Is this version 0? Is this version 1? What does this do? I like the little thing of, why these steps are useful. But I sort of wonder more about the piece of how you're thinking about kind of product horizons, so to say, is kind of what this doesn't really tell me to the same degree. Design journey, series of, again, nice, a bit of UX. I don't know, this sort of feels like you could sort of work out a way to potentially roll it in there. I don't know if this adds a lot to me. Okay, cool. So again, I think from the previous one, like I presume this is the primary revenue channel, and then you're going to have sort of bonus, kickbacks from your marketplace piece. Yeah, sure. This doesn't tell me where you are. Like, where are we? Are we just looking at this piece for now, or where are we sort of sitting at? So I don't mind this, but again, this feels like it should be late in the piece because again, I sort of assumed from the start this would be a B2B SaaS as the primary thing. Team slide, again, people think either really early, really late. Cool. What this doesn't tell me is like, where's your thinking? Like, where's this problem come from you, right? Because like looking at this and your description and your logos and what you've done, it doesn't tell me really where the ideas and where the deep motivations come from. Cool, like a bit of that, backed by RMIT Activator, backed by Giants. Cool. Helpful to know. That way I sort of know who to talk to if I want to get a bit of background on you. But yeah, like this part doesn't really tell me doesn't immediately connect in my head as to what this is. What worries me as soon as I read this part though is to say, is this an outsourced agency thing that they're building, or is this like this person is going to make this into their full-time thing, right? And that's always a big question. A lot of VCs won't invest unless there's a full-time technical person if it's a technical product. And so, is a CTO who's working / running a outside agency ever going to really leave? I don't know. I've had to blow up a few agencies myself in the past, but that's a bit of extra work. Okay, the journey. I like some logos here. Doesn't really give me a lot of like time. This feels like these are evenly spaced, but then these months are not. So I'm sort of like, I can't quite work out the timing piece here. And is this all just 2020? I assume this is 2025. maybe 2025 journey at the top be helpful. But good to have some bits and pieces. Nice. So Biopack, I know Biopack in terms of like big local brand. So, interesting thing. Traction. Yeah, I mean this feels a bit like it's a survey response rather than like an actual paragraph, like a thing that you've said to them. I worry less about the survey kind of stuff, and I want more sort of more qualitative stuff than that. I don't know what Self-Care Ventures is. I'd have to Google that. I would go and Google that. This is obviously all pixelated, which is a problem. So you want to fix the pixelation, because I'm probably going to want to read all of these things and potentially Google them if I don't know a lot about it. So yeah, I like this piece. Interesting. I also go though, one enterprise trial, 200 waitlist. Well, it sounds like you put one waitlist into the trial, right? Like interviews, cool. You've spoken to a lot of people. I like that, but not always necessarily that useful. Market, again, TAM slide. A lot of arguments about what this is. There's I sort of go, oh, is it really going to grow that much? I don't know. I'm sure you can get it. Again, see the links here. I like the links. I'm sure you can get a market. I've never seen a market response that says that industries are going to go CAGR backwards. But I don't know. This doesn't really tell me the piece of like how you see the revenue piece and everything else really stacking out. Like, who is in this world? What does that really look like? Like you've actually done a good bit of journey of like, okay, so year 2 you're going to see 4. You're sort of mostly thinking SMB manufacturers with some large ones slowly coming in. That doesn't necessarily jive with me to the same degree of this piece of your first sort of customers enterprise trial. So I sort of wonder, is month 6 going to be SMB, or is it really just going to be sort of like 3 sort of large trials and maybe a handful of SMBs? I don't know. But cool. I don't mind it. And I like the way that you're sort of showing the B2C marketplace piece here kind of coming in at this point. I sort of wonder if the SOM is 150. I don't know. Okay, competition. Is this really the competition that people would see? Maybe. I can see some of those bits. Is collaboration the right kind of y-axis here? I don't know. I think there's a piece here of what I sort of want to know here is how many of these do this end-to-end. Like if your whole thing is you do this end-to-end piece, then like I think the concept to production, that's the language, then I think this needs to somehow show me who does concept to production, who doesn't. And I don't know if this quite does that to that same degree. Because for example, I know from my side business, the collaboration piece is important to some customers, but if it's a staged thing of where it's person 1 hands off to person 2, hands off to person 3, real-time collaboration actually doesn't matter. It actually just needs workflow. Is different to collaboration. So that's kind of the question I guess I'd ask you about is like how much of this is actually people trying to edit the same file at the same time as compared to workflow, right? Because like workflow can actually be more important. The vision, this feels a bit generic, I guess. But I like this, and I sort of, if I was an ESG related fund, maybe it's important, but I don't know. Contact slide, good, nice, simple. Got some LinkedIn, like a meeting link. That can be helpful sometimes. Nothing here that I've seen about how much we're raising, what our thinking is of the raise, how far along we are. That part of, I guess that slide is missing insofar as there is something there. I find that useful to get an idea, for example, to give you an idea of why I find that useful. I find it useful to get an idea of when sometimes you'll read a slide and you read a deck and you're like, oh, this is really exciting. And you're like, think to yourself, oh, what a great, company ready for, pre-seed stuff, blah, blah. And then they'll be like raising 25 million. And you're like, oh, okay, I've clearly thought this company is way earlier stage than they actually are. So that's the sort of thing that makes it something quite useful. And I'll have a quick flick through the appendix slides. Again, we've got 16, 15. So probably on the upper limit of where I'd go. And I'm fine with appendix slides in read decks because I can always flip through them. I don't know what this snapshot doesn't mean very much to me. I'd give it a better title, or summary. I guess is what I guess snapshot is meant to mean. But yeah, this doesn't necessarily. It's a bit of a lots of words. Industry pool, yeah. There you go. Ask slide, like an ask slide. I'd put this not in the appendix. 1.2 structure is defined by your investors, not defined by you. It's nice to say you want a safe, but if someone wants to do a price round, sucked in, you're doing a price round. Nice to think you're doing a safe, unless someone has actually already invested on a structure. I don't care what the structure is because I'll tell you what structure I'm going to invest on. again, I think this is. But what I also want to know here is like where's this? Do you think is this going to be what from this 1.2 is going to get me to here? Exit opportunities. Yeah, I mean, like again, I just assume this. This is all sort of assumptions, like in the sense of like I'd know this without you telling me you did. So, useful. I just put this in a link to like hey, if you want to download our assumptions deck and fiddle your own. This one you've kind of already covered, I presume, in another slide. And cool. This is, I guess, some more visiony stuff. So yeah, that's my thinking.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hugh, for volunteering for your deck to be broken down. Now, Varsha, I will allow you to hop off mute for a second. Just if you had anything to add, any questions or any follow-ups as well. Over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Hugh. I think that was great. Usually I've only presented these slides a lot, so the feedback's quite different, but I think while reading, that's been really helpful actually, like to really clarify on the problem. And then as to what investors see as to like, where's the money, what stage are you at, what's in for me. I think that's really been helpful. Overall, what do you think of the business, I suppose, like the industry, the space?
So I look at things like this and I go, it's interesting. For me as a fund, I look at it and I go, is it really? Does it have that thing of if I squint at it, will it get really, really, really big? Like how big do I think packaging as a business is going to be, and does that really align? Like this is where, like you're in that segment in my head. You're in that segment in my head of where, as an angel, I look at this stuff and I go, oh, like I can see how it could start generating cash flow. I could see how it start generating ARR, all that kind of stuff. But what I don't know is like, would it get to that Figma size, right? Like, you sort of like, it's a stretch to think to yourself, this could end up being the tool for all design, right? Because obviously, so I sort of wonder a little bit of like, is there adjacencies of where it would go into? Like, would it start being the sort of thing that goes into adjacencies, or is it stuck in packaging? So stuck in packaging, it's probably not the right fit for us as a fund. Like I'm talking like 10-year horizon, right? Not the right fit for us as a fund because we need the stuff that really hits that J curve really hard. And so, the advice I'd be giving to the founder piece for you is that if that's the case, great, but probably like it's not going to be right for an institutional VC fund like us. Could be great though for like, there's the Packers, the Pratts have a family office, the Gaminder have a family office. They're the big packaging families in Australia. For those who don't know, there's indeed the Gaminder Pratts from Rafa. But anyway, like packaging family offices, people understand manufacturing and that supply chain piece. Angels generally are much more, have a different risk return profile. But for us as a fund, because we have to do that sort of portfolio piece, by nature of it, I'd sort of go, it might be the sort of thing of where I would go, I might not look at investing now at the sort of pre-seed, but say, hey, like curious to see after a year or two whether the revenue assumptions are going crazy and whether you sort of start getting dragged into other CAD spaces. I don't know, like buildings, other things that one designs with CAD, or not, is probably how I would approach it as a fund. But equally, the other part of me goes, it's not a bad thing. Like, I can see it generating money.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you, Varsha, once again for taking the time out, and also for on that is we just had a few quick questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, question away.
And also, before I do run into those questions, if you don't mind multitasking, our next final founder, who I'm delighted to introduce in a moment, we do have the PDF, which is being shared right now. But for a moment, I've just shared with you to your email the actual Canva link, because I've been told that there's some videos in there. And so while I'm just going to ask a question there, and if that doesn't work, no stress, we can just do the PDF.
Right.
But if you don't mind multitasking while you're doing that, we've got a question from Alex. Now, these are really good questions. I love that some of the people in the call are hearing the feedback and they're also thinking from their perspective. And so really good questions here. Alex has asked, how important are numbers and stats in the problem slide to investors while scanning the pitch deck? Yeah, that's a really good question. I hear a lot of different things. I'm hearing add more numbers. I'm hearing there's too much numbers. There's too much stats. What's your thoughts on that, Hugh?
I think it depends on how much people implicitly know about the industry and what sort of things you're doing. Like, I think a lot of the time people put numbers in to try and show that a big industry is a big industry, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I know it's a big industry. Like, my job is to kind of know about, like if you said to me mining is big, I'd be like, yeah, mining's big. Duh. So don't feel the need to put in numbers that people would already sort of gut feeling know. Detailed numbers, like industry report stuff, like I can ChatGPT deep research that and get those numbers, right? And you probably have ChatGPT deep research those. So I find that a lot of them is more about a bit of personal curiosity of like, does this match my gut assumptions of the industry, or like, how I would be thinking about how this would work, or what the breakdown of small businesses is versus big, like there's a curiosity piece for me of just like, does it meet my assumptions? But other than that, like I said, I'm not much of the TAM, SOM, blah, blah, kind of slide person. And a lot of the time that's because my experience has been, particularly when you're sort of pre-product or pre-revenue or very early product, early revenue, you could, more fiction is written in Excel than Microsoft Word, right? Like, you can project as much as you want, but until you really have sort of like product and customer metrics and things, you don't really know any of those things, and they're all just sort of totally blind assumptions. So I find them a bit like, it's more an indicator for me, those sort of TAM slides and stuff, about how you're thinking about the ambition of the business and the market and what that market looks like. Like that question I asked about the previous one of like, well, in packaging, this gets to a good business and a big business, but if that's as far as it gets in a 10-year horizon, then it's probably not a right fit for us.
Love that. Thanks so much for sharing. And we just had a very quick question from Joey. Given what was discussed on the ask slide, what would an ideal ask look like? That's a good question.
Yep. So what we tell our companies is that we're raising X dollars. You want the pie charty thing of showing, or the pie charty thing, or like the way you're thinking of spending it, really. Like, and like, I don't care about dollar values, more about just sort of the proportional piece of like, how much of this are you thinking goes into R&D/engineering, how much goes into marketing, what does that look like? And this is what you're going to get, like, this is where we think we're going to get with this money. That's all I want to know. The valuation piece, that's often market, like in the sense of, if you get 5 term sheets, you're going to get a higher valuation. Get 1 term sheet, you're going to get the valuation you get given. And so, and generally speaking, I can sort of back test valuation. I can back assume valuation off the back of what you're raising, but I want to know the dollar value you're raising, because I want to be able to work out, is this going to be enough money to get to the outcome shown on the slide? And I want to know how you're thinking about the split, because oftentimes we'll see companies, even at a very early stage, that will have like, their pie chart thing will be like 80% sales and marketing, and I'll be like, you're going to need to spend some money on product here. Like, this is, you've got a version 0, but like, you're going to need to build more when you have more customers.
Amazing. Love that. Thanks so much for sharing. And Chelsea just asked a really interesting question, but just conscious of time, and we might end up going a little bit over the 1 p.m. mark.
Sorry.
So, no, that's not no one's fault at all. That was just more of a call for everyone else. If people do need to hop off, no stress at all if you've got a 1 p.m. meeting. But we might end up running a little bit past 1 p.m. if that's all right for people. But really excited that we do have 3 founders who have submitted their decks. Now, this next founder, our final founder for the day. And just one real quick. I did post Varsha's LinkedIn and the website for Packaroo. So similar to what we said around Christine, if we could just shower Varsha with some love, like and subscribe to all the socials, check it out. If you're looking to get involved or collaborate, please do connect with Varsha. But our final founder of the day attended the big community day that we ran yesterday. Not only that, attended the whole community day and then the pitch night that we ran straight after. So fresh off the back of a 12-hour startup event. Dr. Sumita is the founder of Deep Sleep Health. Also a big shout out to Dr. Sumita, because she's actually launching today. And so when I do hand it over to Hugh, I'll be posting some links in there. Really want to be able to get out there, showcase as many founders as we can, and also just get around them and support as many founders as we can as well. Now, This is also a very last-minute submission. It came from me reaching out not long ago this morning, and so I really appreciate Samita being able to send that through, and also letting us know that there's some videos on the deck. And thank you, Hugh, for your multitasking at getting this live here as well. I'll throw it over to yourself there, Hugh.
Yep. So first comment, Canva decks and stuff. Founders love them. I like the interactiveness. I would have a PDF that has like a thing on the first slide that's like, if you want the interactive Canva deck, and then link the Canva deck, because everyone will want a PDF. VCs like PDFs because we like to believe in, the joke is that VCs invest in lines, not dots. So even if you're wrong timing for a VC, they'll want us to have, or if you send like a doc send, we will download or screenshot your doc send. Because then when we see you in 6 months, we can actually go back through our notes and, records and look back and go, oh, okay. So when we spoke to them 6 months ago, this is what it looked like. This is when we look what it looked at 6 months later. Have they delivered on the things they wanted to deliver on, for example? So one, be aware that we will keep a copy of these things. Obviously if you email it to us, but two, with the interactive stuff, it's helpful to actually have a PDF version that just has a clear call to action on the first slide if people want to click through instead. Do sleep health again, this is sort of that interesting cross between a vision and a what we do. I'd make the what we do a little bit more obvious. How are you doing it more so than necessarily just what are you trying to achieve? But cool. A lot of space taken for the logo name piece here compared to the what we do, but that's probably a little bit more designing. Okay, the problem. Is this the place I'd start with the problem slide? I don't know. Again, is sleep important? Yes, right? You're sort of you're telling me things that I don't really need to know. This is kind of one of those things of where you want a big number and you get a big number, but this is kind of that sort of numbers that no one ever really sees. No one pays $66 billion directly. There's no sort of direct cost, which is what makes it tricky to sort of generate value out of it. But again, it's no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, that when you have shit sleep, then you don't do a lot of good work. This is maybe more interesting, how do we access this? That's a more interesting stat/number, but these ones I'm sort of yeah, cool. Sort of already tell me anything. I don't know if I'd start this one with the problem slide. Let's see if we get to the solution. See, problem then opportunity. I'd be going to solution a little bit more here because I sort of want to know a little bit more about what it is that you actually are trying to do here. Because I want to go to myself, what would I do? This doesn't really, the workplace proactive, every founder loves to sell the workplaces want to do proactive wellbeing solutions for their teams. And the funny thing about it is, other than EAPs, workplaces don't invest a lot in proactive wellbeing solutions. And an EAP is barely a proactive wellbeing solution and barely something they invest very much in a lot of the time. So it's one of those things where you go, yeah, it's something you say as a founder all the time, but my experience in the market has been that employers don't really care other than that EAP style, hey, there's been an acute workplace related problem or someone has an acute related problem. We need to connect them into support. But the dollar value spent here is actually not very much, even though you would say the numbers stack up. So I sort of go suspicious. This one I think is interesting. I know, for example, and this is again for that sort of mental narrative. I know, for example, the great Timeshifter app, shout out to Timeshifter, great app if you're seeking to avoid jet lag, took a very similar kind of clinical research piece around shift workers and jet lag prevention. It's sort of light cycles and when you take melatonin and stuff like that, but they've actually packaged it really well into an app that is super consumer friendly, that if you're traveling overseas, you just put flights in and then it automatically works out the thing to try and minimize your jet lag. Really, really consumer friendly. And then they launched a shift work related one version as well, not that long ago, that they're obviously trying to sell into hospitals and things like that, a lot of shift workers. But that part I sort of go, oh, okay, yes, I like that sort of space and I think it's interesting. The thing I think the Timeshifter thing did really well is they did the jet lag one first, right? Because it's the mass consumer piece and they built it for the mass consumer. So it's really consumer friendly, not like the traditional research application, let's call it, which can be a bit clunky compared to a Duolingo or something. Okay, CBT. I know what CBT is, but it's sleep training I've never heard of. Interesting. Okay, cool. It's got things. Interesting enough. This I sort of go on, random people ticks for what purpose. But this one, I like the title. This doesn't tell me as much. Doesn't give me quite as much about. Or doesn't is this the outcome? Is this is this the what we do? Is this how we do it? I don't know. Tricky, right? And this I'm sort of like, shopping list of people that have endorsed it. All healthcare things have that. Okay, solution slide. We're doing an education and support ecosystem. So it's less appy than I thought. It's less producty than I thought it was. Interesting. Okay, that's my assumption earlier is wrong here. Right? This tells me it's different. Although digital programs could mean sort of more packagey things. Medicare rebate consults, yeah, okay. I sort of look at that and I go, like the telehealth stuff, complicated. Is that really true? I'd ask you that question. But nice, I guess, if it is. Clinicians, cool. And again, magic EAP integration. But almost all businesses find the cheapest EAP they can possibly find, and they just buy that. Founder slide. I like that. Look at that. Researcher. Tick, tick, tick. Okay, so we understand sleep. I get this piece. Is this the founder? Is this the extent of the team? Is what I ask when I look at this slide. It's a really nice slide, actually, and I think good. Whether this needs to be really big, I don't know, but nice combination of as you saw, I immediately get the piece of okay, she's clearly sleep science world person. Oh, okay, so the sound is not playing for me, for the record, and I don't know if it's meant to. That could just be a Canva-ism. It doesn't look like it is. And it could also be because I'm sharing screen and stuff. Okay, so it's like an e-course. So this is where, coming back to the what we do, right? The solution slide. This part is where I sort of want to know okay, cool. If you e-course me, if I just gone towards there we go. If you sort of made it more obvious, it's sort of is that progressive e-course thing. This makes you go, okay, we've got a sort of thing. I always wonder with these things how much people are going to go through these sort of more traditional things. They're much easier to build than kind of the integrated, Duolingo style education intervention versus this. I don't know. People who sleep really badly will do almost anything to fix their sleep. It's a bit like IBS and the experience with Mindset Health, right? IBS people will jump through hoops to be able to solve for IBS. I don't know what proportion of sleep sufferers are like that. This feels like the same as the last one. I assume maybe because in case the video didn't autoplay, maybe it's the read deck version, has a big play sign on it or whatever. But again, both of them kind of say the same thing, might be intentional. Traction, okay, paying customers, sweet. Okay, we've got consults, we launched today, very exciting. We don't have a dollar value, how much do we cost? Put a dollar value in here. I'm curious to see what it is that you think you're going to charge in terms of the customer piece. Is it going to be $0? In which case, great. Consult clinicians and advisors, great. We've got 2 pilot sites, love. Put some logos in there if there's a logo to share. Upcoming collaboration, sure. This one I sort of go, okay, cool. Obviously in the future you're going to talk to health insurers and sleep clinics and that sort of stuff. Okay, yeah, okay. Let's make the dream. Okay, so the question here is, what is this asking for? Is this asking for money? Is this asking for introductions? Is this asking for, or is this just telling me what we're going to do in the future, right? So I think, final slide, helpful to be more clear on our sort of direct ask. I still remember I was at a might have been a Blackbird, it might have been a Start My Demo Day, probably 2018, long time ago, God, where someone actually put up a slide and they had a picture of one person and they were like, all I'm asking from this audience is who can introduce me to this one person? It's like a product manager at BHP and, Saudi Arabia or something. So you can be very specific on the narrowness of that question. But I think, tell me what this, what's this meant to be asking for? Because you can ask, it's nothing wrong necessarily with asking for several things. If you're saying it's a VC, I presume you're asking for money. But if you're presenting it, you might have, a couple of different asks. You might have hey, we're asking for investment in this context. We're asking, or if you have connections into health insurers or corporates, we'd love the connection. So I think that's it, isn't it? Yes. Nice and snappy. Short, narrow.
Now, Dr. Samira, I'm going to allow you to hop off mute for now. If there's anything you did want to add. Also, thanks for
awesome.
Enver deck through. I think that worked really well, being able to see the demos. I don't think we really would have been able to see them on the PDF. And interesting point you made at the start, Hugh, about VCs like PDFs, but I'm not being a VC, but I really liked seeing that demo. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of get the user interface now. So for me as a potential consumer, I thought that was really cool. But would love to throw it over to yourself if you had any questions.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's awesome, and the first time that I've shared my pitch publicly. Just question around like what do you see would be, now that you've gone through the whole thing, the first well, apart from the title slide, what would you recommend, Hugh, as that sort of early introduction, if it's not a problem?
So I think, so having then seen it, I think for me, I'd have something much earlier in the piece about what that intervention looks like. Like I think the piece of, we're building a thing, like, you know, our first beachhead, like that first horizon, I guess, first product horizon, is a sort of self-guided education course for consumers, or a clinician guided, or whatever it might be, education course for consumers. And this is the outcome we're sort of seeing, or we've achieved, or something like that. I think I'd draw that out a lot earlier, because I think that both tells me what am I actually investing in, and what are the outcomes of it, but also like how are you thinking about that product piece, because, you know, like VCs are product people generally, and so what does that look like, you know? And I'm like, again, similarly, I think somewhere in there might be the question, or the thing I'd ask you on a call is like, so, you know, this has painted me a good bit of the next 12 months. What does the 10-year piece look like? You know, is the 10-year piece you know, everyone's going to have a Duolingo coach, you know, in their pocket, but a sleep clinician is able to also integrate it, you know, I don't know, right? But like, what's that sort of like, I don't really, you know, again, what we say to our founders is like, VCs and investors generally care in that sort of like 1 to 3 year horizon. What are you doing? You know, what are you thinking? What's going to happen? What's the product going to look like? And then the 10-year, like, if everything goes really well, what's the, you know, impact, and, you know, what does the sort of product and business look like in that 10-year piece? Because 5 years, it's always like, yeah, who knows? For all we know, Trump's tariffs destroy us all, or, you know, we get AGI and computers don't exist. So.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thanks so much. Super duper helpful, and yeah, really fun experience.
Yeah, and thank you again thank you again to all of the founders for submitting your slides again. So
Yes,
scary thing to do, I know.
Amazing. Thanks so much. And I have shared the LinkedIn profile, but also the website. So as we mentioned, launched today. So if we can, just give a huge amount of support, like and subscribe, jump on the website, get on all the socials, do all that fun stuff. But thank you, everyone, for taking the time out, and particularly to all the founders. We'll send a follow-up email on Luma with just some of the profiles of the founders, their websites, any other call to actions as well. But before doing that, while we are on the call, just a few other things to mention. Now, this is the first time we've been doing this deck breakdown publicly. Previously, we've done this with Galileo just for a private community of high-growth founders, which, if anyone is interested, I will place 2 links into the chat. So if you'd like to get involved in the Slack channel, join some more of these private events and other types of unique perks, do join, click on that first link. And then secondly, there is an option of a Clubhouse membership at Cremorne Digital Hub, where Rochelle is tuning in from. And so if you need a space to work out of for a few days a week, if you wanted expert advice from Alan Sand, who's on the call just right now, then feel free to click on that as well. But a few other call to actions for the rest of the year. There's a few upcoming events. I know it's nearly November, Halloween season, but there are a few other upcoming events. Now, rather than just spamming a bunch of links, I'm just going to shoot the Luma page. Now, at the moment, that will have 2 events that is live. So the first one is that debate event. Now, already, without any kind of major promo, there's already 230 people attending that. I ask Alan a lot, what's the actual capacity of the building? We'll find out on November 14. So get in there before that. Waitlist is registered. There's some amazing speakers on there. Kate Cornick from LaunchVic, Paul from Rampersand, Jody from Tractor Ventures. You'll hear some more VCs talk about the state of the ecosystem, along with Gary Williams and Andrew Rouse, one of the councillors from City of Melbourne. And then getting into a little bit of the less serious season, when it hits December, almost everyone starts to switch off from things like panels and serious events, and it's just end of year and season. So there is this event happening at Cremorne Digital Hub on Thursday, November 4th, with Aussie Founders Club and Luna as well. So without much promo at all, it's actually already on 77 regos. So there's definitely We'll definitely see the stress test of the capacity of the building. But last but certainly not the least, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Hugh, who has been dialing in from the lair of where all the magic VC stuff happens. And so do connect with Hugh. I've just put in his LinkedIn here, but big shout out to not only Hugh, but also the Galileo Ventures team. So I've just put that website link in the chat. So if you're a founder and you're looking to connect with Galileo and also submit your deck, you'll find the application form on the link just there. And apparently Alan says, we'll go until we melt the servers. Yes, great idea. Very excited for a few interesting months ahead. But also want to say to everyone, a big thanks for taking the time out of your day. This session is recorded on Butter, so we'll be able to circulate that link. But I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day and has a very productive rest of the week.
Thanks
Again,
to the CDH team for inviting me.
Cheers, team.